Hey guys, if you've watched many of my videos, you will already know that I'm a very strong advocate of being sober when we play. So that means, not imbibing alcohol, but also recreational drugs. But what happens when you are on medication, especially when you're on medication long term? How does that affect our BDSM play? And what is that going to look like? So that is our subject today, and I really want to talk about it because it's something that affects me as well. Hey guys, it's Morgan with BDSM Relationships and Education. Thank you very much for checking out my channel. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and click the little bell icon, and that way you'll be notified when I post new videos. We all know that YouTube is being difficult about letting people know when new stuff comes out. So that is your way of keeping track of when I upload, because I am not succeeding at having a regular upload schedule. Anyways, I want to talk today about medication and BDSM. Now, just to give some of you a little background on me, if you don't already know, I do have a medical background. I was a paramedic for a number of years before I was injured and had to retire. So I'm not going to be giving medical advice here, but I am trying to speak from a position where I know at least a little bit about different types of medications. Your best source for information on medication is absolutely both your doctor and your pharmacist. I think we discount pharmacists a lot, but they are experts in medication. That's what they went to school for, and they went to a lot of school for it as well. I only have a very general knowledge. I mean, like, I had a couple of classes on pharmacology, not a lot of education. They focused on the medications that we were allowed to administer as paramedics. So with all that out of the way, oh yes, the other part that I was going to say, how it affects me, is that I am a person who has a disability. I have chronic pain, and I do take medication for that. And so I've taken a lot of different medications over the years, and they have affected me differently. And I'm happy to say that I have found what works for me now. Minimal side effects, maximum pain reduction. It's pretty awesome. But there was a lot of trial and error, and I wasn't about to stop being kinky during that time. And I'm not about to stop being kinky now. I will be on medication for the rest of my life. There is no question about that. We can all hope that they miraculously find a cure. It's unlikely. I'm going to be on medication for the rest of my life. I can deal with that. It's not a big deal. But let's talk about that combination of medication and BDSM. So the first thing I want to talk about is sort of the difference between like long-term medication and versus short-term medication. So short-term is, you get sick, you go to the doctor, you get some antibiotics or whatever. So short-term medication, it doesn't give you a chance to really adjust to it because you're on it for a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks even. But, it takes a while to understand how your body is going to react to that medication, how it works with your particular brain chemistry, how it works with your body, how it's going to affect you. When you get medication, they give you this long ass list of potential side effects, right? Not all of them are going to happen to you, and some may happen to you that aren't on that list. I've had that happen. So we know that people react differently to these things. We know how typically people react. And then, of course, there's issues with stuff that isn't reported. I remember there was one medication that I was on, and I was actually on it twice. And all of my hair started falling out. I didn't go bald, but it was horrifying when I didn't have dreadlocks then, but it was horrifying when I took a shower and there was clumps of hair. My hair was everywhere, and I went to my doctor and I'm like, my hair is falling out. What's going on? And she had no idea. And I had to do research to find out that the medication I was taking, for the record, it was topiramate, was making my hair fall out. Other people have had that experience, but it's not listed as an official side effect. And so it wasn't until I stopped taking that my hair stopped falling out. And I have no problem with hair loss now because I'm not taking it. So it was it only happened during the 2 times that I took that particular medication. So it's pretty obvious that it was that one. We don't know how these things are going to affect us, and some of the side effects may not be listed, basically. So examples of short-term medications that could have negative effects on you would be obviously pain meds. They can have, whether they're short-term or long-term, can have a lot of effects on our cognitive abilities. Anti-anxiety meds, antibiotics can have an effect on you. Muscle relaxants, antihistamines can cause problems with like memory loss and concentration. Sleeping pills, I think it's a little more obvious. There's lots more that you could take on a short-term basis that could cause all kinds of problems. So you really need to know how it affects you, and a short-term medication doesn't really give you enough time to know how it's going to affect you. So my basic advice for short-term medication is to simply take a little break while you're taking it. Most of the time it's going to be a week, maybe 2 weeks. It's not a long time. So it's not a big deal to take a step back and say, okay, I'm not going to do any really dangerous activities during the time that I'm taking this medication. And so whether that's topping or bottoming, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's best just to avoid. And maybe that means only doing light activities with established partners, or maybe it means not playing at all. But, and chances are, if you're on short-term medications, you're probably not feeling great anyways, right? So there's that. So there's 1,000,001 long-term medications that can have an effect on you. So I give you like the short list, even though there's a ton of things on it. But here's a general idea of what could, again, be affecting you. There's antidepressants and other psychiatric meds that could have quite serious effects on your memory, on your judgment, on your personality, all kinds of stuff like that. Tranquilizers as well, which sometimes falls into the category of psychiatric meds, sometimes not. Anti-anxiety meds, like all of it. They can have serious issues, and you don't know how you're going to react until you take them. If you are having negative side effects on any kind of psychiatric medication, just talk to your doctor. There are a lot of options out there, and you can try different things until you find something that works for you. Pain meds, I mentioned that already. I think that we are really, really all aware of the dangers of pain meds. I am on long-term pain medication. And so I know how it affects me, in that basically it helps get my pain under control, and I don't have cognitive or any other side effects like that. So I'm lucky that I can take those and I don't get high and I don't have an issue with it. I know that some people take these kind of the same pain meds and have problems with concentration or memory, or they feel like they're getting high, stuff like that. I don't have that issue. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But it is a sort of a big one that can be quite problematic for some people. Things that you wouldn't expect, such as blood pressure medication, blood thinners, cholesterol meds, all of those can cause memory issues or perception issues or mood issues, all kinds of stuff there. Arthritis meds that aren't necessarily painkillers can have serious effects on us. Birth control, probably one of the most common medications out there, and it can have some serious, serious effects on us. You can ask any woman who has taken birth control and completely lost her mind. I know that happened to me. If I take birth control that is estrogen heavy, I become an absolute disaster. I remember one time crying hysterically because we ran out of milk and I wanted a cup of tea. We will ignore the fact that there was a store open just around the corner and I had money in my wallet, so there was no barrier to me buying more milk. But there was no milk. And that was the end of the fucking world. So I don't take that type of birth control anymore. I'm thankful that I know that about myself now. And I shared that information with my doctor, and we just don't go there. So, but I've also met women that have that reaction to progesterone, which is usually birth control is one hormone or the other, or a combination of the two. So, yeah. That's something to be aware of. And it's so common, like the medication. also these effects are so common, but a lot of times they get put down to, women just being hysterical or having PMS or whatever it is. And so that is a real problem. Incontinence medications can have problems, dopamine agonists, like you name it. There's a huge long list. So be aware of the medications you're taking. Read that printout with the huge long list of potential side effects. Talk to your pharmacist. They will be able to tell you what is like a more common side effect versus what's a rare one. If you have problems, talk to your pharmacist and talk to your doctor, because there are usually multiple options that you can try. So whatever medication you're on, if it's giving you issues that you are not comfortable with, there's usually something else that you can try. And it's really important to sort of monitor that. I know that I've been on medications where I didn't realize that things were not good, specifically some antidepressants. And it was the people in my life that were like, who are you? Because you are not the Morgan I know. You are this like person that has gone off the deep end. And I didn't realize that I was acting like a horrible person. But it was the effect that the medication was having on me. Like I said, I've tried 1,000,001 different medications. Herbal remedies as well can cause issues, because we need to remember that herbal stuff is still medication. So whether we're talking about like, I know a lot of people take St. John's wort for depression, or melatonin for sleep, so there's all those kind of things. And then there's the sort of more obvious that it's a drug stuff, but it's still in that classification of herbal stuff. So medications like kratom or kratom, I don't know how people say it. I've really only seen it on the internet. But that can be used for pain, for concentration, for all kinds of different things. And I think personally that it's a pretty decent thing. I've taken it myself, but there are side effects that come along with it that you need to be aware of. Same with CBD or THC. A lot of people are getting into medical marijuana, and whether they, for their condition, need more CBD or more THC, it can have its own side effects and can definitely have cognitive effects. So you need to be aware of that. You need to understand how your medication affects you. So with long-term medication, again, we aren't going to say, we can't look at it the same way as short-term, because I just told you for short-term medication, lay off play, right? But I'm on medication for the rest of my life. So should I just never participate in BDSM ever again? No. I'm going to take medication. I'm going to see how it affects me over weeks and months. And then I'm going to slowly incorporate play back into my life so that I can see and, communicate with my partners. I'm always honest with my partners, especially if I've just started taking something new. I will be honest with them. And for the record, I don't always disclose this for just like casual play. I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but let me get through this first. But yeah, we will disclose. I will, get their feedback. If anything is off when we're playing, I ask them to speak up, to use safe words, to just say, hey, you are not you right now. We need to talk about this. So I really encourage them to do that. So I learn how the medication is going to affect me. And I need to understand how it's going to affect, my judgment, first of all, because I'm a top. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is like some medications will have detrimental effects on your memory. And so what I would do when I was taking stuff that did affect my memory is we would talk about what are your limits every single time before we play. And even with long-term partners where I should know this, I would always want that reminder, okay, what are your limits again, so that I don't cross a line. And I would check in with them, and I would recheck. And maybe I would go a little overboard sometimes with the checking in, but I'd rather do that than cross a line, right? And my partners were usually okay with that. Again, we would talk about it beforehand, because communication is the most important skill you will learn in BDSM. I've said that a lot, but it is that important. You need to be able to communicate. Another thing that you need to take into consideration is if you're bottoming, you need to learn where your limits are. They may change. Some medications could make you more susceptible to pain, or it could make you more susceptible to bruising, especially if you're on like a blood thinner. You would bruise a lot more easily. And if bruising is going to be a problem for you, then you need to know where that line is between feels good and, oh, too much now, I'm really bruised. So there's all kinds of things that could be affected by medication when you're playing. So again, take the time to learn how the medication is going to affect you as a human. And then when you decide to go back and reintroduce BDSM into your life, go slow, play light. You can always play again and play harder. You can always add. You can't take away. I've said that a million times on this channel. But just go really slow and light until you know how this medication will affect your play. Now, let's talk about disclosure, because I do think that it's important to disclose in some circumstances. In others, it's a bit of a gray area. So when you choose to disclose that you are on medication, you are basically disclosing your health information. If I tell you I'm on antidepressants, you may assume that I'm depressed, which would be a reasonable assumption. But what you don't know is that antidepressants are also used to treat chronic pain and a number of other conditions. So we don't want to make those assumptions. However, people do. And sometimes people will discriminate based on those assumptions. Should you not play with a depressed person? Hell, no, that's ridiculous. Depressed people deserve to do stuff just like anybody else. People with psychiatric issues, mental health issues, deserve to, have as much enjoyment as anybody else in life. But, if you are somebody who can't handle those kind of things, then that's a discussion you need to have. So there is a lot of discrimination that can come along with it. And I am saying this as a person who takes pain medication. There's a lot of discrimination, especially in the current climate. And people make assumptions about me, i.e. that I'm an addict, which I am not. But there is an assumption there that is made. I generally believe that it is better to be honest. However, I don't always disclose my medication status to just casual play partners. If I've just met somebody and we're going to play at a dungeon, I don't go into my health history. I'll give them a basic overview, but I'm not going to sit down and have the same type of discussion as I will with a partner. If I have somebody who is, a more serious partner in my life, then we do talk about, okay, here's the medication that I'm on. Here's what I think you should look out for just in case there's any problems. Do you have any questions about my meds or my condition or whatever? And we talk about those things. When it's a casual partner, like, hey, I just met you at a party. We're going to play once and maybe never again. Maybe we never see each other again, because I do a lot of traveling and conventions and stuff like that. So it's, how much do I want to disclose at that point, especially knowing that there's a lot of discrimination. And then there's a lot of other issues that come along with it. Safety is one of them. I've had people ask for my medication. I've had people demand medication from me. So that can be a real problem. I think you also need to be prepared to educate people if you're going to disclose, because, again, there's a lot of assumptions, i.e., antidepressants equal depressed person or whatever. So I think that you do need to be prepared, if you disclose, to do that education. It shouldn't be your responsibility. And maybe your version of that education is Google it, telling somebody, Google it. That's fine if that's what you want to do. You need to do what's right for you in that situation. But we also need to understand that what we take can affect play. And if it's something that's going to affect our partner in any way, even if it's like this tiniest of possibilities that it might affect them, we need to disclose, because they cannot give us informed consent unless we do. So it could be something as simple as, hey, I'm on a blood thinner, so I bruise more easily. It could be something where some medications are passed through urine. And so if you are doing water sports, especially if you're doing consumption, then that person needs to know, because if they consume your urine, again, little tiny chance that they could have a serious allergic reaction to that drug. Usually it's a tiny, tiny amount and it's not going to be a problem. But if somebody has a severe allergy, it could be an issue. And you don't want to be that person that didn't disclose, right? Because you could kill somebody potentially. Small chance, but it could happen. It's not zero. So they need to know. They need to be able to say, I am willing to take on that small, but, existent risk. If you are on something that is going to affect your memory, it could affect parts of your negotiation. For instance, like I said, I needed to go over people's hard limits every time we played because I wouldn't always remember. I would write it down sometimes so that I had a list and I could check it if I needed to. If I was like, oh, I want to do this thing, wait, are they okay with it? Okay, and I could check a list of what's good, what wasn't. You figure out your own sort of workarounds. And for some people, it's going to be hard to determine that line between fun and harm, right? So again, I'll use painkillers as an example. If you're taking painkillers and you are a bottom, it could mask the pain that you need to feel, where you're like, okay, we're bottoming, we're doing pain play, and it's fun. And you may not totally recognize that line where it goes from fun all the way over to harm, or just too much for you or whatever. So that can be a real problem. So if you don't want bruising, you need to know where to stop for bruising. But if you can't feel it as much, then it can cause a problem, because maybe you're like, oh yeah, no, this is fine, because you're used to the way you used to be. But now it's going to cause bruising because we are either going harder than you anticipated or that you realized, or because the medication is making you bruise more easily. So there's lots and lots of reasons that you should disclose. There are some reasons that you may not want to disclose. Again, I always tell you guys, you are adults. You need to make your own decisions. And as long as those decisions do not affect other people, as long as it doesn't affect their ability to consent to play with you, then I think you are absolutely in your own right to make whatever decision is right for you. But please do remember that we should give people all of the information they need to consent to playing with us. So, yeah, it is a determination you're going to have to make. But playing with medication long-term, I don't think is an issue in and of itself. I think that it just adds to our negotiation and it adds to what we need to talk about. So if you guys have any questions about playing on long-term medication or short-term medication or anything like that, please leave me a comment below. I will say, I don't want to ask you guys like, oh, do you play on medication or anything like that? Because I don't want you to necessarily disclose your personal health information on the internet. I've made a choice that I feel it's okay for me to disclose this because I mean, you guys see my channel, my life is a bit of an open book here, and I want to, teach you with my own personal experience in some ways. But think about that. And I mean, I don't have a problem if you want to disclose that information, but just please make sure that it is something you realize that everybody is going to see if you post it in a comment. So please, share your thoughts on this subject. What do you think about playing on medication, whether it's short-term, long-term, whatever. So please let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for checking out this video. I know it was a bit of a long one and I talked a lot, but I appreciate you checking it out, and I will see you guys in the next video.